This is From Ring to Veil, a wedding planning podcast, the PNW's complete wedding resource, with your host, Kim Mills and Shannon Palmer. This is episode number 31, Planning the Wedding of Your Dreams on a Budget.
Did you know that you can have the wedding of your dreams and not bust the budget?
And it doesn't need to all be DIY.
DIY. We found the perfect resource to bring you some great information.
Listen in as we share with you how to plan the wedding of your dreams on your budget. Our guest today is Emily Wagster with Thrifty Beginnings, a wedding planning and coordination business. Emily has been working weddings for over 4 years and thrives on being thrifty. She seems to really enjoy the process of creating something unique and inexpensive. Thank you, Emily, for being here and our special guest.
Thanks for having me.
So can you tell us just about your background and how you got started?
Yeah, so my first experiences with event planning was kind of in JROTC in high school, running the supply and being in charge of the whole thing for a while. So I kind of got an idea of how to be a leader in that sense. And then I worked as a volunteer coordinator for Volunteers of America at a boarding house, and that was my kind of like really starting to get to know what like the ins and outs are of event planning. And then I accidentally became the manager of a wedding venue.
Okay.
So I was working at a coffee stand after stuff happened, and I was laid off from Volunteers of America, and my aunt worked for a farm, and they had a wedding venue, and they needed help for the weddings that summer. So I got hired as the assistant, just running the events on the day of. And then 2 weeks later, the manager left to go to another job. And so I kind of picked up slack, and they ended up not actually hiring a replacement, and I just continued doing it. So I did that for 3 years. Last year I ran my business and that business as well. And then I decided when my son was born that I needed to go full time into my business because it works out perfect.
Yes.
To be stay at home during the day. And I kind of accidentally found out that I really, really love weddings.
That's pretty fun. And it's like it found you.
It did. It really did. It was meant to be.
Awesome. So we are here to talk about thrifty weddings and how that all works.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people think DIY is they have to do everything and there's tons of work to go into it. But I think, now that we have an expert here, that you can help us kind of clear this up with our brides and couples. When it comes to DIY, let's just start off with that. Yeah. What do you recommend to do and what do you recommend not to do?
So anything that can be done ahead of time can be DIY'd. So if your decorations, your flowers, your desserts, things that you can do the week of or months ahead can be DIY'd. The day of, you really shouldn't be doing anything except for, getting dressed and hair and makeup and pictures and enjoying the day. So that's my focus as a planner, is to make sure that the couple is enjoying the day. So I really suggest that unless you have somebody to do it for you, that you don't DIY anything on the day of. Decor and desserts and flowers and the like are really, really easy, and it's a fun way to kind of show off your style and with DIY. The one thing that I really tell people not to do on their own is food. Because you'd think that it'd be cheaper, but a lot of times it adds up to the same exact price because you're not buying food at wholesale prices, and you don't have all the tools, and you have to rent a whole bunch of stuff to make it happen. And even more importantly than that, but your family and friends who are helping you out do that, they miss out on being present. A lot of times they don't even get to see the ceremony. You don't often see the caterer out watching ceremonies because they're getting ready. So that's definitely something that I suggest people not do unless it's just really important to them to have their family make their food. And I totally get that. So it's different for everybody.
Now with something like that, would it have to be a home wedding? Because I know venues have to have like insurance. Unless
it happens to be that your family owns a restaurant or a catering business and they know how to do licensing and all that stuff, then but yeah, you're right, most venues require it to be coming from a commercial kitchen.
Right.
So you could do you can buy from Costco ready-made and go set that stuff out, but it most of the times has to come from a commercial kitchen.
Right. And that's kind of sticky thing, especially with allergies nowadays. And then you don't want to make anybody sick and, all that kind of
It's easier to do it if you're doing a smaller wedding, like in a backyard or at a park, and you know everybody, and it's small, and it's not that hard to do a barbecue. But for when you're over 100 people, it's a lot of food.
It is.
That's too much of a DIY project, I would think. So,
I agree. I'm sure a potluck would be fun, if you're doing that kind of a style.
As long as you can organize it well and have somebody be in charge of knowing who's going to bring what dishes. Otherwise, you might end up with a whole bunch of pasta and a whole bunch of salads and not a lot of real filling food.
No main courses, just salads, pastas, and desserts.
Realistically, that's what happens.
To keep costs down, what would you eliminate or cut back on?
So before I have anybody decide on what they're getting rid of or what to pare down on, we sit down and talk about their priorities. I'm all about prioritizing when you're working on a limited amount of money, because you want those key things that are going to make your wedding feel like yours. So sit down, and each couple or each person in the couple kind of picks one or two things that are really, really important to them. And then we'll go through and say, okay, what other things might you want? And we'll put it in an order. Okay. So like the top are those non-negotiable things that we're going to have no matter what. We're going to make those happen. And the rest of it, if we need to cut back, we'll cut back from the bottom. So it's really, really hard to say what to cut back on because it's going to be different priorities for everybody. One thing that is really costly that you could cut back on, as an example, is real plates, utensils, and glassware. Those are really expensive to rent. It's $5 to $10 a person once you add everything up. So there's some really awesome looking disposable and compostable plates and utensils and cups and all that stuff. And go green, go be a Washingtonian and get compostable plates instead,
That's right. Yeah. So, what I'm hearing from you is that our couples need to, with their planners, especially if they have a planner, go through and prioritize.
Yeah, and together.
Yes.
Not just the one side that's doing most of the planning, but it needs to be a team effort.
Right. And then work
down
from the bottom
list.
up. Yeah. Okay. What are the best things to spend money on?
Yeah. So the best things to spend your money on are good quality service. If you can afford to hire somebody else to do it for you, do it. It's one less thing for you to worry about, one less thing to stress on, and you get what you pay for. Like, a lot of people are going to say, oh my gosh, $1,000 for a DJ. Whew, I'm not going to do that. And they're going to go hire their high school friend who has, equipment for $400 or less. And they might not be a good MC, and they might not know how to control the flow of the party. And especially with a DJ, they're going to be, if you don't have a day of coordinator, they're going to coordinate your entire reception so that you get what you pay for on that. And same with photographers and same with caterers and stuff. It might look really nice on paper, but their service might not be great.
So you're saying they're worth it.
They are worth it.
That's what we try to stress to our couples that listen to us, is that you get what you pay for. Yes, you can find that Craigslist photographer, but
you got to check out their stuff. Yes, exactly.
And obviously your priorities. Make sure you're spending your money on your priorities, because that's what's going to make your wedding really special for you.
What do you find that your couples, spend the most money on?
So venue is usually location, and then photography and food. Those are usually the top three. A lot of people put music on the back burner first, which I think it depends on who you are. But personally for me, I would want like a party vibe, and I feel like for me, I would put music higher up on the priority list. But again, everybody's different.
That's right.
So yeah, but most people do spend the most money on venue and catering and photography.
Okay.
Can you have a large, luxurious wedding on a small budget?
Absolutely. I am working with a couple right now who we are planning a 150-person wedding, and they're spending less than $7,000.
Wow.
And it's at a beautiful, beautiful venue. It's an old mansion turned to a wedding venue, and we're gonna go really awesome with flowers and stuff. We're gonna and decorations. We're doing a lot of DIY projects for it just to make it happen on that in their price range and stuff. And it's going to be awesome. And then we worked really hard to find them a good caterer and cake and everything, but we're all in all spending less than $7,000.
That's crazy. You wouldn't think that you could do something like that.
It's totally possible. It's all about prioritizing and kind of not going for the first thing you see, really, really doing your research.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's important too. Where are we here? Okay. What are, I guess, some of the worst things to spend your money on?
Yeah, things you don't need. So
Right.
if you just don't think you need desserts, don't spend your money on them. That can add up really quickly, especially if you have a lot of guests. So non-priorities, things you don't need. And again, that's going to be really hard to say because it's different for every single couple. But that's kind of, if you don't think you need it or you want it because somebody else expects you to have it, don't do it.
Right.
It's going to be a waste of money if it's not going to make you happy.
Right. We kind of think, well, we're of the mindset that favors are kind of a waste of money.
Yeah, they are. There's other cool ways to do that. Like there's this awesome paper that has flower seeds in it. And if you have programs or something of the like that you can print on paper that, hey, take this home and like
Throw it outside.
Plant it in your garden and you'll have, in a few months you'll have a reminder of our wedding and stuff like that. So something, if you're going to go with favors, definitely something unique and usable. Because mints and jellies, there's always a lot of extras.
Yes.
And I get to take some of them home, which is nice. But yeah, it's a waste of time if you're going to make a whole bunch of jellies on your own and they don't get taken.
I agree. Or they get taken and then they just throw them away.
What are the things that a bride can compromise on with her groom when it comes to disagreements on the budget?
So that's a hard one. I have a spending plan worksheet that I sit and work out with my couples that I'm doing full planning with. So the first thing we do is talk about where their money is coming from, what their saving plan is, or what their spending plan is. Whether they're going to save money up and then spend it all, or add it to their monthly budget, which is kind of usually what happens. It's the easiest. And then figuring out, what other places do you have money coming from, like your family and any friends, maybe if friends were giving you money instead of a gift. And I really like the idea of, yes, this is a party and a wedding and it's cool because it's a wedding, but it's not all about the wedding.
Right.
You're starting a marriage and a new life. So this is really sometimes your first opportunity to work as a team and to compromise. Yeah. So making sure that you're really, not making it so you're giving in to their needs, but you're really being accepting of what they are prioritizing for the wedding, if that makes any sense.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So it's really, it's a time for you to really be working together. And it's a big deal because you could be spending a lot of money. It's the first time you're really maybe experiencing that much cash flow as a couple. And so it can be really stressful on that side of things. So really making sure you have open communication and compromise and, but not on your priorities. Allow each one to pick their priorities and accept that.
Right.
That's what they think is important.
That's a very good way to say it. And I love that you pointed out that this is their first big
expenditure as a couple.
Yeah, expenditure and planning together as a couple. Because I know there's some where one of them is like, I don't want to do any of it, you do it all, but and then it's come on, help me, and no, I don't want to. So I'm glad that you pointed that out, that they're starting their marriage, and this is a big decision and a big money spending item. And they say spending money is the biggest, or money is the biggest
argument.
Yes, you don't want to start off on the wrong foot.
And in allowing each other to have their own priorities is a really good way to put it.
Because you're going to have to do that through your entire life anyways. So you might as well start now.
What are the 5 top tips that you have on how to save money?
So I'm going to be a little repetitive here because my number one tip is to prioritize.
Okay.
Obviously, we've talked about it a lot. That's really, really important to know where you want to spend your money and what's really important to you, and everything else will fall into place after that. Number 2 would be to know what you want to spend from the beginning and why you picked that number. Be it this is all the money that we have to spend towards this, and that's all we can do. Or hey, we would rather buy a house.
Right.
A wedding can cost as much as a down payment on a house.
Yes.
So having your that's another priority. That's money. How much do we want to spend and why you want to spend that? That's going to help keep you in focus as you're really considering where you're spending your money and creating your spending plan. Number 3 would be to enlist help and delegate tasks. And then let go of it once you've delegated it. Obviously, you're going to follow up and make sure, hey, is this getting done right and on time? But really, a wedding is a full-time job. And if you're going to DIY a lot of your stuff, it's like it can get really stressful. If you work a full-time job and have life, like you're not going to have 30 hours a week to spend on everything.
That's
and it's really, really hard. So shopping around and knowing ahead of time what you're getting yourself into or what you're buying. So if you are going to DIY anything and do a project, really, really take into account how much time it's going to take you and how much the materials and any tools you need to get are going to cost you. And compare that to how stressed it's going to make you. I call it my cost versus sanity ratio.
Yes.
You really, really need to consider that. And on the other hand, see if you can find a ready-made item of what you're trying to make and see how much it costs. It might not be cheap, and it's probably not cheap for a reason.
Right.
So it might... In the long run, is that few dollars that you might be saving yourself, doing it yourself, really going to be worth it if it's going to stress you out?
Exactly.
And you also have to take into consideration, it could fail.
Right.
It could not work out. And then if you're shopping for services, get lots of quotes, shop around, and read reviews. Because again, if you might really like the price point on somebody, but the reviews might not be so great because their service isn't top notch. So.
Right.
Stellar service is really, really helpful when you're doing a lot of it yourself. And the last and most important one is to have a plan. From the beginning, have an idea of what projects you're going to do and how much time they're going to take and where in your schedule you're going to add that time. And once you schedule it in, really stick to it so you don't end up in the last month trying to do everything.
Yes, or the last week,
Or
right?
the last week.
Procrastinators.
And for the day of, if you're, again, going to be doing something else. You're not going to be out there setting up. So having a plan of how is everything going to get there? Who's in charge of setting it up? How is it supposed to be set up? Here's some pictures of how to do it. Whatnot. It's a lot of things. So if you have somebody to help you run all of that on the day of, or help you put it together in an organized plan and a timeline, that's going to be most helpful for you and kind of keep the stress off.
Would you recommend that a couple always hire a planner, even on the different, like if it's a low budget, if they have a low budget, would you recommend them to have a planner?
I recommend a day of coordinator for sure. If it's a friend who you are okay with not being present and involved in the entire thing, and they're organized, awesome. Give them a gift. It's a lot of work. But if you can afford it, or you can find a coordinator who's willing to work in your budget, definitely day of coordination, which again is a misnomer because it's really a couple months of planning. But a planner is not entirely necessary if you are good at coming up with a schedule and a plan for all of your things and getting it done in a timely manner. If you need somebody to kind of be project coordinator,
yes,
planners can do that. If you need somebody to plan it all for you and maybe you just help put together the DIY projects, then again, a planner, there's a lot of range of help that a planner and a coordinator can do for you.
I think you also have to consider how creative are you and how crafty are you? Because if you're not that, and you plan to DIY a lot of stuff is probably a little more complicated than you think it is.
Yep, that's why doing your research ahead of time and knowing what you're getting yourself into is really important.
I'm creative in the flower part, but she's my DIY guru. If we have to make something up, she's the one that goes and does it.
I did the crafty thing.
Enlisting help. It's really important. Somebody else might know how to do something better than you do, so asking them to help is really, really useful.
Is there any other information that our couples might need or want to know in order to have a thrifty wedding?
It's all about making it your own. So it does not have to be anything typical. It doesn't. The only thing that's required really is that you are married on that day.
Right.
Everything else is exactly what you want it to be, and don't ever feel pressured to do something just because somebody else does it. Or the opposite of it. Don't feel pressured not to do something you want because it's on trend.
Right.
So do what you want and what's going to make you happy, and then remember your day. It goes by super fast.
It does.
So just know that it's going to be exactly what you want because you picked exactly what you wanted instead of what somebody else wanted.
Exactly.
Emily, where can we find you?
So I am based out of Marysville, and I really like working kind of Snohomish County area and north, but I do work weddings down south too. But you can find me on my website, thriftybeginnings.com, or on Facebook and Instagram and all that jazz.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I think you brought some really good information for our couples, and maybe help them plan their thrifty wedding a little easier.
And prioritize.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
There are so many options when it comes to saving money on your wedding.
The tips that she gave us on how she achieves a fabulous wedding on a budget.
Mm-hmm. Kim and I agree that it is very important to prioritize your wants and needs, and that includes the groom as well.
Right. And I think we've said that many times on the show. Don't forget your
groom's needs and wants. And I love it when grooms come to, the planning sessions or anything like that with the floral, because they have ideas.
They do.
A lot of them do. Instead of, of course we have some that come in and play with their phones the whole time. But
hey, that's fine. At least they're there for support, right? So, don't stress over the details. Let someone else do that for you.
Yes. She also mentioned, delegation. Delegate duties. Because your wedding day is your day. You don't need to be worrying about details.
Exactly. This is your wedding. It's the beginning of your wonderful marriage, and no matter how it comes out, it's going to be memorable. You're going to love it. And the mistakes make it too. I remember mistakes at my wedding, and I laugh, and it was fun, and people were, snickering or whatever.
And plus, you really won't remember mistakes.
Not if they're like, okay, these napkins were not folded exactly correct, and you're not going to worry about that. So don't put too much importance on that.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Show us some love by subscribing to From Ring to Veil on iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, and leave us a review.
It only takes a few minutes, if you would, please. We really, really, really would appreciate that. And, this is just the only way that other couples can find us and listen to the show.
So until next time, no stress, no worries, keep calm, and listen on. Thank you for listening to our podcast. You can find us on Facebook, From Ring to Veil, on Twitter, @From Ring to Veil, and on our website, FromRingToVeil.com.